Have you heard of winter sowing? Winter sowing is a way to start seeds without a heated greenhouse or expensive grow lights. You just start the seeds outdoors for the most part. In our cold climate, it is a little bit different than in other areas, so we adapted the system. To start, you will need a container. Milk jugs are the most common ones. Others work too. Just take the lid off and you are ready to start. First, you need some holes for drainage, but also to water the containers. You want to drill 8 to 12 holes at the bottom or at the side, that's up to you. The recycled containers can also be reused. There is no need to use new containers every time. Actually, everything about starting seeds in winter sowing is a little bit different than what you know from usual sowing seeds indoors. It's simpler, it's cheap, and it really does grow on me the more we use this system. Using a container with a handle comes in handy because we have to bring them in and out depending on the weather and what we plant in our cold climate. Once the holes are drilled, we want to cut the container open about halfway. We start at the handle, leaving about an inch, and start cutting away till the container is open. Once the container is open, you want to fill it with good soil that has some compost in it. We do not use seed starting soil. The compost is important because we will not water the seedlings as we usually do, but the soil has to have some fertilizer already in it. If you use a growing medium, just add a little bit of compost to each jug so that the plant has some nutrients to grow into healthy plants. The premium organic vegetable and herb mix is a good choice, or another option is Mel's mix, 1/3 compost, 1/3 vermiculite, and 1/3 peat moss. Important is that the soil is well watered. Preferably water it before filling the container so you are working with moist soil, and then water it again. You want the soil be moist, not soaking wet, but well moist. What varieties to start in winter sowing? That's a great question. It is easier to answer what not to start in winter sowing. So far, I have not had any experience with peppers. Peppers are just heat-loving plants, and we grow them in a tower garden mostly anyways. Another plant that I would not start in winter sowing is indeterminate tomatoes. Indeterminate tomatoes are too tall for that kind of containers. If you have bigger containers to use, go ahead, do it. That would be possible. Determinate tomatoes do great. Another plant variety that we do not start in winter sowing are cucumbers, squash, zucchini, that kind of plants. They are better started in bottomless pots, and we already have a video about that, because they do not like to be transplanted. Other than that, I cannot think of anything that cannot be started in winter sowing. However, there are 3 different categories of plants that you would start. For one, there are the cold weather crops that germinate early and grow in cool weather conditions. These are all the cabbage family plants and greens and such. They do great in winter sowing. Plant, bring the containers out, and they will germinate when time is right. Then there are plants that are cold hardy, but they like to have a warmer germination. Those are, for example, onions. And onions are a great plant to start in winter sowing because they like it cool. They only need warmer temperature for germination. So for onions and other plants like that, we seed them into the jugs, Close the jugs just as we would for any other plant, and keep the jugs indoors so they can germinate. And as soon as the onions are germinated, we bring the jugs outside. Now they can be in cooler conditions, and onions like it cool. Another plant variety that can also be started in winter sowing, but in our cold climate, is better to germinate and keep indoors at least for the cold nights. Those are heat-loving plants, for example, tomatoes. Tomatoes do great in winter sowing if brought in during cold nights. They do not need growing lights for that. Indoors, they are only at night. Outdoors, they are during days. And if there is a cold period, bring them into your garage. They will survive. That's okay. Use duct tape to close the jars so they are well sealed, and you can even lift and carry around the jars as is. The jugs will be closed till it's time to harden off the seedlings. The jugs can be watered in a tray. Just put them in a tray and fill the tray with some water, and they will soak up the moisture. Don't forget to label what you have planted inside, or write with a permanent marker on the jugs themselves, from inside, from outside, wherever you want, so that you know what you have planted. Now it's time for the winter part of the sowing system. The whole idea of winter sowing is that it can be done in the middle of winter and will work. This is true for temperate climate. Any seed that would naturally survive being frozen and then germinate would work for winter sowing in zone 3 also. That said, minus 40 degrees is hard on the containers and may damage some seeds. There is no need to expose them to it. The seeds will not come up any earlier if we start them in the winter sowing earlier. They will come up when the soil reaches the temperature required for the types of the seed planted. In winter sowing, we are aiming for young, healthy seedlings. For the most part in zone 3, it seems to be a good idea to go with the same seed starting schedule we use for winter indoor seed starting. You can find a free printable in a link below. Mid to late February is a good time to start hardy perennials. For containers that have been planted with winter hardy seeds, choose a sunny but somewhat sheltered location from the wind. Place them into the snow so the snow gives some temperature stability and insulation. If there is no snow and the night and day temperature fluctuate, you can either cover the containers for the night with a protective blanket or bring them in. This will help speed up germination and protect your seedlings, giving you better results. And like we said earlier, only hardy seedlings are outside during a cold weather. All the other ones wait indoors or in a sheltered greenhouse or location till the weather gets warmer. About a week before planting seedlings in the garden, open the containers. Start that process in a shady, sheltered location or on an overcast, calm day. Slowly introduce them to sunlight and wind. Covering it first with fleece is a good idea. After that, they are ready to be planted and grow into healthy plants. Find more information about winter sowing on our blog, northernhomestead.com. The link will be in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.